An explosive-laden drone discovered at Leipzig airport earlier this month. Claims of foreign sabotage, cyberattacks and espionage. And it's because of these threats that the German government wants to give its spy agencies unprecedented new powers. Supporters say it's about keeping Germany safe. Critics warn it could come at the cost of civil liberties. Well, Germany's push for greater intelligence powers comes against the backdrop of the war in Ukraine. For years, German and other European officials have accused Russia of waging a hybrid campaign against Germany, which is one of Ukraine's biggest military supporters. It was just a few days ago that a drone carrying explosives was found near a Ukrainian aircraft at Leipzig-Halle Airport, a key logistics and cargo hub for NATO. US intelligence has pointed the finger at Russia, but Germany is still investigating and has not established a suspect. In 2024, at the same airport, a parcel sent from Lithuania burst into flames shortly after being loaded onto a cargo plane. Prosecutors in Lithuania blame several people with links to Russian military intelligence. But perhaps the most high-profile case comes from before the Ukraine war began. In 2019, a Chechen man was gunned down in broad daylight while walking through a park in central Berlin. Authorities caught the assassin, who was accused of acting on the orders of Russia's state security service, the FSB. A German court sentenced him to life in prison. Well, these are just three examples of foreign interference within Germany. But across Europe, cases of sabotage, spying, drone interference and cyber attacks are on the rise. And the German government believes it needs an intelligence service that can fight back. Well, in a moment, I'll be speaking to Verena Jackson from the University of the Federal Armed Forces in Munich. But first, let's talk to Max Hoffman, who's DW's Berlin bureau chief. Great to see you, Max. The German cabinet has just approved these intelligence service reforms. What exactly does that now mean?
Well, first of all, this is just the coalition, so the governing coalition agreeing to this, deciding that they want to do this. It doesn't mean that it's a law yet. In order to become law, it needs to pass through Parliament, and that will take some time. The plan is to have it enacted by the 1st of January 2027. So they will need to get cracking, to put it that way, because it will have to go through Parliament multiple times. But it seems realistic that this will happen, because not only the governing coalition is behind it, but you also will have support from most likely parts, at least, from other parties in Parliament. So we do anticipate this happening, although, as you mentioned before, there is some criticism because it is a paradigm shift. It breaks with the principle of the separation of power that was always in the case here between the collecting of information by the intelligence services and law enforcement by police authorities, for example. This will be different here. And also, as you probably know, in Germany, data privacy is a very, very big topic, and also some NGOs, some organizations, but also especially the left party in German parliament sees that in danger with this reform.
And that's certainly something that we will be putting to our next guest. But these spy agencies, and they are the Foreign Intelligence Agency, the BND, and the Domestic Spy Service, the BFV, are often referred to as toothless tigers. Do you think that's fair?
Well, even today in that press conference that you just mentioned, after the decision of the governing coalition, the Interior Minister says we rely very, very heavily on other intelligence services from other countries, France, for example, the UK, the US, obviously, and that is a given. You know, this is not a two-way street at the moment because of the restrictions that the intelligence agencies in Germany have. They're mainly about collecting information and are very restricted in that field. You know, what kind of information can they collect, on whom, how long can they keep it? That's all very restrictive. And if you look at the increased threat you have, the hybrid threat, you mentioned it, also artificial intelligence, then I think it's fair to say that German intelligence services are very restricted in what they can do.
Yes, a good point. And you said that you still expect this to be passed by the 1st of January. But what can we expect now, given that we've had this cabinet meeting and that, as you said, there is still a lot of support for these reforms?
Right, so it will most likely pass, and maybe this is the right moment just to give a reminder about the main things that will be passed here and why these are paradigm shifts, because it will give the intelligence services in Germany, if passed, the authority to actually act, to be operational in other countries. This will not go as far as with other intelligence services in other countries, for example, even targeting individuals. Germany won't be able to do that, but they can do acts of sabotage, something that the intelligence agencies so far could not do, especially, cyber sabotage comes to mind, or, for example, making it hard for certain institutions to transfer money. This was one example that we could give. And this really is a paradigm shift for Germany, although it's normal in other countries. And also regarding the organization right now, the organization of the intelligence agency is pretty fragmented. And that they're trying to put it all under one roof, under the roof of the so-called Independent Control Council, where you have different agencies represented, and also independent control within there from jurisdiction, and that's supposed to speed things up, make it more efficient, make the exchange of information also easier, and give this tiger some teeth.
Yes, a good point. Max Hoffman, DW's Berlin Bureau Chief, thank you very much for your time. Well, let's talk now to Verena Jackson from the University of the Federal Armed Forces in Munich. Verena is also a legal advisor and a senior researcher at the Centre for Intelligence and Security Studies. Great to see you, and thank you very much for your time. My first question is, what's your assessment of these plans for a major overhaul of Germany's intelligence agencies?
I would say it's due in time. We've seen a change in the threat landscape in the past years that has a major difference from what situation we had when the constitutional regulations were created that govern our services. So it was due.
So it's fair to say, as some have argued, that Germany's cautious approach to intelligence has really left it behind the curve and more open to threats.
I would say it's one part. Why Germany is on one of the major targets, let's say, in hybrid warfare, in the situation that we are in right now, is a complex situation. But yes, one is that our services could not react in a manner that maybe other services, especially in Europe, could. So this is one part of it, yes.
So up until this point, what exactly have the German services been able to do?
So far, the last decades, German services were just, quote unquote, allowed to collect data, to observe, to analyze, and then provide that data for other agencies like the police, for example, to act on, or the military, because we have a military service as well. But they were not allowed to have any operational competency. So they could not go out like other agencies in other countries could, and, for example, manipulate IT infrastructure in other countries. So it was just observance and analysis.
So with these changes then possibly coming in fairly soon, what do you think stands out in terms of the new powers that these services could get? Will they make a huge difference, do you think?
I wouldn't say it will make a huge difference. For a huge difference, especially in the situation we're in a hybrid threat situation, it would need a more comprehensive approach from also other aspects. But it will make a difference how Germany now can not just only rely, like it did in the past, heavily on other services for information collection, for example. They will have more options, so to say, to go out and collect data, and then also show possible threat actors that they're not just observing, that they can also react with, like I mentioned before, for example, infiltrating IT systems when there's a cyber incident going on actively, and not just inform and analysis, inform analysis. So yes, they will make a difference, but the difference in operational aspects is one part. Difference for the German, let's say, mindset or the understanding of how Germany has seen its services, that is the major part that will change, because it's a major disruption from the historical perspective that we had on our services.
Yes, I want to talk about that in a moment, but just sticking with the changes that then are likely to come in, do you think this is also about reducing reliance on other intelligence agencies? You already mentioned Europe, but, for example, also the United States.
Yes, definitely. We've seen in the past years, that we cannot rely on our allies and friends blindly, that there might be some disruptions, in the future. So we have to stick up and collect the data ourselves, or then operate ourselves. So yes, this is one actually part that drives the discussion, that has been driven the discussion for this major reform.
And for many people, it will seem peculiar that Germany's spy agencies haven't had more powers. People, for example, in countries in Europe, I'm from the United Kingdom, for example, and elsewhere. Can you explain why Germany has been so reluctant or perhaps unable to give those agencies more power?
Yes, in Germany that has historical reasons. So when we had the Nazi regime, we had the Gestapo, the secret state police here, that helped the regime to terrorize Jews and terrorize the population. And we learned from that experience, and we would never want to have that happen again. So then when the constitution was made in the 40s and 50s and even 60s in Germany, that was what we had in mind, to prevent that from happening again. So that's why we created a strict separation between what is police and what is secret services. And from that on, we had that always in our constitution, in our bloodlines, so to say. That's different from other countries. But of course, nowadays we face a new threat that we have to tackle with maybe even new laws or regulations or changes.
And also, you've mentioned it before, but this whole idea of data collection has also been a taboo in Germany, hasn't it? Who can keep it, whether agencies can share it. Can you explain what exactly is due to change?
Yes, we were always a bit reluctant here in Germany to collect data from our citizens, but also from citizens abroad, foreign citizens, when our secret services were operating. Now, the secret services should be able to collect more data and more easily, and also store them longer, and then do analysis on them using artificial intelligence, which is also something that actually just brings us up to the status quo, the state of the art, so to say, comparing also to other European agencies.
So you say that it will bring Germany up to the status quo, but there have been real concerns about these plans within Germany. We've got, for example, opposition politicians who've spoken out. And let me just read you quotes from two of them. First of all, we have Wolfgang Kubicki from the Free Democratic Party. And he says what Dobrindt, now that's Germany's interior minister, is planning is a historic breaking of a taboo. I want full judicial oversight of infringements on fundamental rights, he says, and a government that understands that freedom is not defended defended by curtailing them. And then secondly, we have Clara Bunger from the left party, Die Linke. She says anyone who grants intelligence agencies operational intervention powers, sabotage authority and the ability to carry out state-sponsored hacking operations is planning to create a new German secret police force. Very strong words there, real fears being expressed that Germany could end up recreating a German secret police force, something that you were talking about before when you were mentioning the Gestapo during the Second World War. But what are your thoughts about concerns, particularly from within Germany, about giving these agencies more powers?
I think they have to be taken into consideration. They have to be heard. They have valid grounds, like I said before, historical, actually, our historical past. But what we should keep in mind when we actually want to change something that is so in our bloodlines, in our constitution, in how we operate our secret agencies, it's just natural that there are different opinions on that. What we have to definitely keep in mind and really also focus on is that we have judicial oversight over the services in the future. And what I would like to mention also that this law that's coming now will definitely go to the German Constitutional Court and being analyzed there on how constitutional it will be. So there is, let's say, a second instance then who checks that law. It's not if it goes into effect now, if it passes the Bundestag, that there will be no checks and balances anymore. So the concerns are valid, but we should also keep in mind that we live in an age of technology, different threats than what it was decades ago.
So what do you think will happen next? Do you think these reforms will go through?
That depends a bit on how actually our judicial court will, of course, assess it. What we see now in the draft of the law, there are parts that I would say might be causing some trouble and might not go through in the end. But on an overall look at it, seems to be a constitutional, very well thought law, and not just a quick shot after the recent incidents in Leipzig or other areas here in Germany where we have drone sightings or other hybrid threats.
So we'll watch this with great interest. Verena Jackson from the University of the Federal Armed Forces in Munich and from the Centre for Intelligence and Security Studies, thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you.
So what are your thoughts on Germany's plans to overhaul its intelligence services? Is this a sensible move that's long overdue? Or do you think the reforms go too far and could turn Germany into a police state, as some opposition politicians have warned? Do let us know in the comments. I'm Alex Forrest-Whiting here in Berlin, and I'll see you soon.